taught this morning, this is something that's a little bit different than, I guess, my typical talk. So it's, I guess, pretty practical. I want to talk to you about this important tool that you all possess. And it's something that you learned when you were little that's going to bless you when you're old. And I'm talking about your ability to write, W-R-I-T-E. Right. Do we got everybody can read and write in here? This is a good thing. You're cocking your head, Jeff. I know you know how. All right. I want to talk to you guys this morning. I've never talked about this before, ever, about journaling. I want to talk just a few minutes about writing down your thoughts, writing down what's happening in your life. Now, when I grew up, I'm from Sand Mountain. I just met some Sand Mountainers. Here's Rob's parents. They're from Albertville. It's neat because I told him that my last name was Hallmark. He's like, well, there's a whole bunch of Hallmarks up there. And I love that. I'm used to where I'm from, people approaching me and saying, you're a Hallmark, aren't you? Because there's some strong gene pool or whatever, But we all kind of look alike. And not the whole mountain, just all the Hallmarks, right? Okay. Anyway, but it's neat to meet people from close to back home. So anyway, glad to have you guys this morning. Anyway, I grew up, and when I thought about, actually, I didn't think about journaling. To be honest with you, I thought that girls wrote in a diary. That was about the extent of it. You know what I'm saying? And that journaling, which is more of a masculine phrase, at least it was more comfortable to me, than writing in your diary. That's not something that was really in my grid. But when I became a Christian, I found myself wanting to write down some of the things that I felt like God was showing me. And I really got turned on to the Lord when I was 16. God radically changed my life. And so, I found a journal or bought a journal. Occasionally I would write in it. But over the years, I've developed this as more of a pattern in my life. And you guys, let me just say something too, especially for the men in here, is that journaling is not just for women, and you're not a sissy. I mean, think about Lewis and Clark. Bless God, these guys were manly men, and they journaled. They wrote down their happenings. Moses, it says that he wrote down an account of everything that happened. The whole Exodus, Moses took time to write down what was going on in his life. Listen to this verse, Luke chapter 1, verse 3. Therefore, since I've carefully investigated everything from the beginning, this is Luke talking, it seemed good to write an orderly account for you. Not good? So say, I can write, Yeah, I was just thinking about this thing we see on TV sometimes. It says, your baby can read. You can write. Anyway, but let me just share a few things. I'm gonna try to move through this quickly today. Would that be cool if we got finished a little early? Okay. But do this. We didn't do a weekly this week because we didn't really have any announcements. But there's a pen in front of you in a chair. Go ahead and take that. And if you want to take one of those envelopes, if you don't have any paper, but write some of this stuff down. This is practice. I'm not a huge note taker, to be honest with you. I usually just take the notes that I think I'll use in the future, or the few things that I want to remember from a talk. But sometimes writing all of it's good. But I want to encourage you to write a few things down, even if it's just one sentence down today. And that pen right there in front of you, that is our gift to you today. Please take that home, because we want that pen to remind you to write, to journal. Okay, so listen to this. Number one, writing my thoughts gives me clarity. This is why we want to take time in our lives to journal. Now, let me just say this. There are times when I journal more than others. There was a season where I said, this was like a 5-month period when I was doing a discipleship training school with YWAM, that I was going to journal every day, and I did that. I literally journaled every day for 5 months, and that was pretty cool. Now I journal probably about once every couple weeks. Not that often. I mean, I'm probably writing something down, maybe about once a week or so. And so when I'm talking about journaling, I'm not saying like if that's not your deal, this is something that's far beyond you. This is something you can do. But first, number one, writing my thoughts, it gives me clarity. That's why we want to journal. Listen to this quote by Dawson Trotman. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's a DJ. He says, thoughts disentangle themselves when they pass through your fingertips. Sometimes we really don't even know what we're thinking about or feeling. We just kind of feel blah. But when we take the time to write it down, it's almost like we have to think. Actually, let me give you another quote. This will say what I'm saying better. This is from some U.S. senator. I don't know who it is, but I read it in a book one time. But he says, you don't know anything clearly unless you can state it in writing. And so when we're talking about our feelings, the way what's happening on the inside of us, some of us are not emotionally aware at all. We'd have no idea what's going on inside of us. We're just reacting all the time, and we don't know what's happening here. But writing actually forces us, to write something, you have to think something. You have to think a thought to be able to write it down. And so what happens is when it goes from our brain through our fingers onto the paper or typing, if you're typing, it forces us to bring what we are feeling, what we're experiencing, into words. And words have meaning, and it helps us in the process understand what's going on. So if I can write, you guys can too. Writing gives me an expression. It gives me a way to express something instead of bottling. I know there's lots of ways that we can express ourselves, but writing is another expression. Now, journaling is not like the silver bullet to your relationship with God. There's not a silver bullet. This is a bullet in your 6-shooter, okay? It's not the silver bullet, but it's one of many keys that will help you. It gives you something to do with your thoughts. Most recently, I've actually been dialoguing with a couple people in writing, and it's been a little bit tense in the dialogue. And I've written 2 or 3 letters to them that I've not sent. And then I've just journaled about how I was feeling because of that. And I feel better. I'm not going to send, I'm trying to find something that's not doesn't have my hurt bled all over it, to send them. But it's helping me to simply write the letter. I listened to a book, in fact, this week, an audiobook called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's great. Everybody should listen to this, should read it. It's really good. But one of the exercises in this is writing a letter. So you don't slime someone else. You can write them a letter and try to get what you feel. But writing gives us a way to express ourselves. Now, when I say write, I don't mean blog about that. I'm talking about more your private. You can blog. That's awesome, but be careful with what you do. Sometimes people are passively complaining to someone else through a blog. I think that's a little bit, that's called passive aggressive is what you call that. Anyway, just tell them directly if you're talking about them or to them, if that's the point. Anyway, that's an aside. But writing, it gives clarity to my thoughts. As we understand what we're thinking, that's a first step to problem solving, isn't it? For example, when I was journaling this week about the issue I told you about, I wrote this question down. What am I afraid of? Because I got to the point where I was mad, but I realized, anger is really just a secondary emotion. And I realized what was making me mad. It was actually a fear that was I was afraid of. And so I wrote down, what am I afraid of? And I'm not going to tell you guys what I was afraid of because that's my journal, not yours, sorry. But anyway, I got to the point where I was getting in touch with the insecurity that I had. And often, and this is